12 Asian nations sign up to a U.S.-led deal on economic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. President Joe Biden hopes it will fill a void in America's trade strategy as his administration seeks to counter China's growing influence. In Singapore, one of 7 Southeast Asian nations to join the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. The nation's Prime Minister lauding its forward-looking agenda.
Well, let's get more on the new Indo-Pacific Economic Agreement. Angela Mancini, she's partner and head of APAC Markets at Control Risks, joins us live. Ms. Mancini, if there's been this void in American economic strategy in Asia, does this economic framework provide the kind of durable, concrete economic engagement that Asia has been looking for from Washington since at least 2017?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the critics of the U.S. Engagement in the region have always been about there's just a lack of an economic plank. As we know, former President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the TPP, and we really haven't recovered with the economic engagement since then. This goes some way towards doing that. The IPEF does indeed, all credit to Biden. He's got 13 countries signed up to it already. I think the challenge is, though, it is not a binding agreement. We're just at the beginning of discussions. It doesn't include trade-like benefits that the other countries would want. It doesn't include a reduction in tariffs. It doesn't include increased access to the U.S. market. What it does is it would put in place rules around things like digital trade and other areas, which the U.S. is saying is what matters for innovative economies. We don't want to be using in the U.S., quote unquote, 20th century tools like traditional free trade agreements. But the reality is the U.S. voter will not stomach additional free trade agreements that might hurt the U.S. worker. So the U.S. administration is really hamstrung with respect to trying to figure out ways to be economically engaged in a consistent way over time in Asia, but not being able to actually drive forward free trade. And actually, that's not just what Asian governments and businesses want. U.S. business is also pushing the U.S. government for that, but that's very difficult.
Well, Ms. Mancini, this idea of the fluidity, so for example, you're saying that this only goes some way because it may not be durable. So countries may pull out, but the idea was that with this flexibility, you would get more sign-on. So you've got 12 plus the US, 13 countries right now, and they are given the flexibility to shape their agenda in the weeks and months ahead. You don't think this fluidity actually works for IPEF?
I think the fluidity does work in a way because it is more, it's not quite as rigid. And the U.S. is trying to get countries to sign up within like a 12 to 18 month time frame to whatever is finalized, as opposed to traditional free trade agreements taking years and years. I think the challenge, though, is that Asian governments are watching the U.S. with the deep knowledge that the Biden administration won't be around forever, and we don't know what kind of administration might come next. And so I think there's genuine concern from the Asian government side around, is this something that can be long lasting, even past, through different administrations? And certainly the Biden administration is really trying to make sure that they are institutionalizing a framework of economic engagement that can indeed outlast their own administration. But that's what we'll have to wait and see. I think the outline of the plan so far is positive, but the devil's going to be in the detail. We're just agreeing now to begin the discussions. We're not actually starting to negotiate any of the specifics yet.
Okay, the IPEF is necessarily fluid at this point, and Mr. Biden is heading tomorrow into a meeting of the second in-person meeting of the Quad security grouping. Now, the Quad has been deliberately fluid for quite a while now, essentially to avoid antagonizing Beijing. But one criticism has been the Quad needs to get more concrete, needs to be more structured, it needs to be more institutionalized. Do you see this happening in tomorrow's meeting of the Quad security grouping?
Yeah, you're raising all the right points. I think there will be more formalities. Tomorrow, we're going to see, I think, some more things announced, although there's not a whole lot they can announce. But to your point, in the past meetings, there has been a movement towards having the Quad be more specific, precise, and actually have working groups around some of these issues. As we know, it was never designed to be a military alliance per se. They're very careful not to avoid any work streams, any initiatives that involve direct military to military cooperation. But having said that, there's at least 12 work streams on things like space cooperation, on things like critical minerals and technology innovation and other types of things that are important to all those groupings. They have indeed been making progress on those, and part of it's climate, part of it's trying to get 1 billion vaccines out across Asia by the end of 2022. They have been making progress on that. I think we have to see if there's much more they can announce tomorrow. They have announced a maritime initiative to look at illegal fishing. There is a concern about China, making agreements, security agreements with the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and Kiribati recently. So we'll see if anything more comes on board there. But the main thing, I think, for tomorrow's meeting is getting a public reaffirmed commitment from the new leadership in Japan and also Australia.
All right, thanks very much indeed for all that. Angela Mancini, partner and head of APAC Markets at Control Risks.